A lot of you would watch podcasts on YouTube, and one of the more popular ones is, of course, Impaulsive, featuring Logan Paul, Majlak, and George Janko. Well, it doesn't seem that way anymore, because over the past month or so, George hasn't featured in any episodes, and his recent tweets hint he may even expose the pair. Make sure you stick around to the end for the full details. He has since stated that he is still part of the show, but a mysterious tweet and his unfollowing of Logan and Mike have led others to believe otherwise. Fans were left in suspense after George sent out a puzzling tweet on April 25th, 2023 on his Twitter account, leaving them to wonder whether something had truly happened between him, Mike, and Logan. "I wasn't going to talk, but now I am," he said. Fans immediately commented on the tweet to express their opinions, with many speculating as to whether or not he will discuss the events between him and Impaulsive. It's just really difficult not to be dragged down when those around you disrespect and laugh at your faith. You distance yourself because that's blasphemy, but you also never stop praying for them. Wait, what? You got removed from Impaulsive? I didn't like you at first, because you were new, but you have become the best co-host on the show, and there's no denying it at this point. Dude, be the bigger man and just walk away. You had a good run, just didn't work out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the post notification bell. This way you'll never miss out on any future celebrity videos similar to these. The whole tension between all three co-hosts began with the infamous Impaulsive clip where George stormed off set and ordered an Uber home after Bobby Lee joked around with him, which he thought went too far.
There are certain...
He is clocked out.
Yeah, I know.
George has been under a tremendous amount of abuse.
No,
No, stop, George. I want you over here with me. George, I want you over here with me. Chase him down. Go. You find him. George, no, go get him. Go get him. I said this, he walked, and that's a first, and now we're going to have to deal with the fallout of this episode for the next 2 months. I swear to God, Bobby Lee, you pissed off my co-host. He's probably crying in the driveway.
It does seem that since that incident, and another massive one, which we'll shortly check out involving Logan Paul looking down on George's religious beliefs, which was definitely a step too far, his whole demeanor on the podcast changed after this viral moment. George, thank you from the bottom of my heart. As a fellow Bible-believing Christian, I love how you handled this situation. With such a huge platform, you displayed yourself and your religion. And while taking criticism from a friend, not only did you stand your ground, you were loving and respectful. Thank you, George. God bless. It was painful watching Logan be so incredibly insensitive and irresponsible after thinking he's genuinely matured, in any facet. Props to Mike for mediating this mess and George for staying composed. I am Muslim, and I got so happy when George stood up for himself, and not being a spineless coward who does not stand for his beliefs. These were just a few of the more offensive remarks made against Logan Paul on the December 13th episode of Impaulsive. Considering how much he has seemed to mature in previous years, this was unexpected. He was nasty in his remarks to George, and it appears that his situation on the podcast is just getting worse. For those that haven't seen the clip of Logan going at George for his beliefs, here it is.
One that really hurt me is you told me I need a therapist because I believe in Jesus. That one hurt me.
No, I didn't. I said you need a therapist because Jesus isn't quite doing it for you.
What do I need a therapist for then?
Jesus isn't doing it for you. And I
what do I need a therapist for?
I don't believe you're as emotionally mature as you could be.
What do I need a therapist for?
To get you to level up.
In what?
Yourself.
In what category?
Emotional intelligence.
Emotional? Me?
Yes.
Do you think that is something a loving human being would say
I do.
to somebody?
I love you. And I don't think Jesus is evolving you in a way.
The big issue with this was Logan wasn't even trying to listen to George's points and was so set in his ways that nothing was going to change his mind regardless of what George would bring up. George stood his ground very well, remained composed, and as we've already seen, the entire audience on that episode sided with him. While Mike's job is made easier because by default some of the attention is also on him, George has problems because there are some episodes where he hardly says anything, almost biding his time to land a good joke, and when he shoots it almost feels out of place because he's been quiet for so long. Logan is the main host and star of the show, so guests typically look in his direction without really engaging with George as they speak. Logan doesn't treat George with the same degree of respect that he does Mike, which makes it worse since when George speaks, Logan frequently interrupts him because he wants to say something first. The Flagrant Show is hosted by Andrew Schultz, and while they typically have 4 hosts, there are times when they only have 3, and the way they do it works much better. The setup of the podcast just isn't right for George, and from one look at a comparable popular podcast, you can see why. The more balanced dynamic that results from Andrew sitting alone on one side of the visitor and the other 2 supporting hosts sitting on the other side allows Schultz to take the lead but still allows the other 2 hosts to command attention due to their numerical advantage. When it comes to Impaulsive, the problem is that Mike's standard seat is next to Logan because he's Logan's right-hand man, so it doesn't seem likely that they will change the arrangements. However, if they did, it would relieve George of his pressure to say something amusing in order to remain involved. You may know that George Janko has started his own podcast on his main channel, where recently he's had big guests such as Devin Haney, Tana Mojo, and Summer Rae. It seems highly likely his entire focus is on that project, which is why Impaulsive is most likely off the cards. I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts about this entire situation. Do you think George still has a place on Impaulsive, or has his time passed and it'll be better to focus on his own platform instead? Comment below. A few weeks back, George went on Brendan Schaub's podcast and briefly mentioned Logan Paul and how grateful he's been for all the opportunities he's provided him along his career thus far.
And then through that, he like opened the door for me. So like Logan not only like taught me how to do it, but he also like opened the doors for all the other things. So like regardless of wherever me and Logan go, I'll always like my career, God gave him me to like, you know, like help each other.
He gave you your start.
Oh
your
yeah,
launching
yeah.
pad.
But then, if we go back to what we checked out earlier on in the video, where only a few days ago George tweeted out, "I wasn't going to talk, but now I am," tells an entirely different story. There could be something that has happened behind the scenes, because if Logan was comfortable bashing his religious beliefs on the podcast in front of millions, he could do the exact same off-camera and more. The Impaulsive crew has stated that their YouTube comments are the best indicator of audience sentiments, and recently there has been a noticeable shift in the past. On the same Impaulsive episode that George apologized for walking out on Bobby Lee, he also confessed to feeling like he's not doing well on the podcast anymore. People felt George struck the ideal balance between humor and seriousness, while also being kind and respectful to guests. They felt he filled the role of the third host perfectly, on the other hand. And Mike was the cast member who received almost all the hate in the comments. Many thought Mike was very immature and self-centered. They also frequently called him out for interrupting guests or talking endlessly about his past drug use. While most of the comments about George are still positive, a lot of people are now saying he seems uncomfortable, doesn't say much, or just isn't funny. On the other end of the spectrum, some have even claimed that the podcast would be better off with just Logan and Mike. However, viewers appear to adore Mike, who is now frequently referred to as the show's heart. His interviewing abilities have significantly improved, and he seems to connect with guests in a way that George and Logan don't. This is partly because he is older and has more in common with the guests they have on, but it's also because he is excellent at guiding the conversation and picking intriguing subjects to discuss. All of these changes have been great for Mike, but not so good for George, because George is much more sensitive than Mike and is not nearly as well adept at handling negative feedback. Viewers have also noticed how much Mike looks out for George on the pod, which has revealed a caring side to him that wasn't really present in the past. It'll be interesting to see what comes from all of this, and if George really does think it's time to talk and what that entails. Anyway, this concludes today's video. Be sure to subscribe to Loaf for future celebrity videos, and turn on that post notification bell so you don't miss out on any future uploads. Until then, see you in the next one.